Welcome back, Ronin Renegades. I am Lupine Fiasco, this is Daily FaB gameplay, and today's game is a mirror match against FaB. For anyone who is new to the channel, welcome to the Resistance. What we do here is review replays of games that I have played on the Talishar client days or weeks ago, after enough time has passed, that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my play. I will walk through turn cycles as if I were taking them now while explaining my thought process for the lines that I would take, and we compare that to what I did at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future to take down paper events like ProQuests or Road to Nationals, and most importantly, walk away with that shiny cardboard. Without further ado, let's talk about our sideboard and our game plan. Today's video features my Switchblade list. If you would like to check that list out or try it for yourself on Talishar, the FaB deck link is available in the video description below. While you're down there, if you have not already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. It is the best free way to support me and to make sure you see daily FaB gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. The best paid way to support me is through Patreon, and my Patreon link is also available in the video description below. A Patreon subscription will get you Discord access, your name will appear in every daily FaB gameplay video, and there are even more great bonuses to come. Daily FaB gameplay will always be free 5 days a week, so for anyone who can afford to patronize me, I truly appreciate it. We win the die roll, so we will be choosing to go second. As we all know, FaB doesn't do much on turn 1 besides throw damage and set up an arsenal, so being able to block our opposing FaB gives us tempo on turn 2. We throw damage at them, they throw damage at us, and we alternate back and forth until our damage starts to threaten lethal before their damage does. So we take cards from their hand, making their turns less effective, meaning that we have to block even less than they do, and ultimately we should win the game. Taking a look at our equipment here, you can see that it is different than what you are used to. I did change the Switchblade list over this weekend, and I will get into those changes in just a minute when we look at the 60. But as far as what equipment we are bringing to this matchup, we are making no changes. Against Ninja, we really want Momentum and Kodachis to punish them for blocking ineffectively. Ninja does not deal arcane damage, so we do not need our Spell Void. And without Tide Flippers, we have no choice of boots. We are bringing Snapdragon Scalers. Looking at the 60 here, you can see some more drastic changes, and I'll talk very briefly about what I did to the list. I cut 3 copies of Censor and 1 copy of Command & Conquer. I also cut Tide Flippers and, most dramatically, Fiendal Spring Tunic. In their place, I brought Spell Fray Cloak, 2 copies of Spreading Flames, 1 copy of Salt the Wound, and 2 copies of That All You Got. Command & Conquers and Salt the Wound are taking the place of Censor in the main 60, and Spreading Flames and That All You Got are in the sideboard. The reason for this is Censor is a great card. I thought it was very neat. I thought it played very well in Kodachi, but did not play very nicely with Emberblade. And if you are following along with my matchups guides, you are noticing that I have been bringing Emberblade pouncing links into more and more matchups, such that the deck needs to start being tweaked to match that game plan rather than Kodachi Momentum. Censor had the same problem that Bittering Thorns had with Emberblade, which is that it costs 1 and it isn't draconic, so it very often screws with the FaB plan of a 0-cost draconic, Emberblade for 2, pick up the Phoenix Flame with the last resource, and then throw a finisher or something else on our turn. I was too often getting hands that looked like Command & Conquer, Censor, a blue, and a Snatch. Just something I couldn't do anything with. So we are cutting Censor, and putting in more effective cards. Spreading Flames is a great one-to-one swap for bleed out when we are playing the Emberblade Pouncing Lynx plan. That All You Got is great in the Ninja Mirror. You're going to see why. And it's also very good against Dash, as it can block her pistol, either pistol, prevent that loss of life, and replace itself. So it just gives us a bit of an edge in that race. Command & Conquer is great disruption, and it comes back into the main. And Salt the Wound is here as a 3-block, as a great finisher, and as an extra way to pay for these Command & Conquers. So what are we boarding out in this matchup? Well, what we are going to board out are 2 copies of Ravenous Rabble, and we're bringing in 2 copies of That All You Got. We don't need our Sink Belows or our Reinforce the Lines for FaB, as we are trying to race. We are not trying to prevent FaB's damage. Spreading Flames is a great card, but has not worked great with Kodachis in my experience. The Kodachis not being draconic really limits the explosive power of Spreading Flames. We need certain cards to support Spreading Flames, and because I play the game turn to turn, I am not looking to luck into a good Spreading Flames hand. I want to be consistent. We are bringing That All You Got in because it is very good against FaB, as it stops the Mask of Momentum chains by blocking the Kodachi or a Phoenix Flame, and it also replaces itself. Finally, we are cutting Ravenous Rabble from this matchup because we are bringing in extra yellows. We already have too many misses in our deck for me to reliably play Ravenous Rabble, hence why I only play 2 instead of 3, and bringing in more yellows would probably have us cutting reds if we wanted to keep Rabble in, which would further dilute the pool of hits. So we're going to cut Rabble, we're going to bring in That All You Got. The game plan, simply put, do to them what you hate when people do to you. If FaB is on Emberblade Pouncing Lynx, you are looking to block for full value, to deny them the extra power from their Pouncing Lynx. They should never get above 6 points of value from their Pouncing Lynx. And if they are on Mask of Momentum, you need to evaluate what they already have played in the turn and how many cards they have left in hand to guess at what the rest of their turn looks like, so you know where best to interrupt their mask triggers. And I certainly could have taken this advice in this game, so we'll talk about situations where I failed to play intelligently based on information that I have from experience. I threw a lot at you. We talked a lot about the new changes to the deck and less about the game plan, because we should all already know what to do based on our experience. But we'll jump into the game and see what that looks like in practice. Both Phoenix Flames go to discard, and we draw into a real clunker here. Very glad to be going second with this hand, as you really just want to filter some cards out. We can block this brand for 3. We have a choice of our Lava Burst, our E-Strike, or our CNC to do so. Of those 3, I think the weakest card is Lava Burst, as we are least likely to be able to work it into a turn. E-Strike is just 0 for 7 if we need it to be. Command & Conquer is good disruption if we draw into a blue. Lava Burst is the hardest card to get value out of in this hand, so we're just going to block with that and see what FaB has in store for us. Kodachi for 1, I'm not inclined to block this. I am not inclined to block the other Kodachi either, knowing that FaB can still pick up and play the Phoenix Flame. I choose to block it here. I don't think that is correct. I think I would rather save this Snatch to block this Phoenix Flame than hold on to cards to block something like another brand with Cinderclaw followed by a Snatch. I think there are higher priority targets later on, and we are happy to take that Kodachi damage. Drawing into a red and a blue is a good start for us. We're probably not triggering Mask of Momentum this turn, as we do want to play this Command and Conquer. We can't easily work E-Strike into this turn cycle because we don't want to bottom our Phoenix Flame, and we would like to have a guaranteed arsenal. So let's play red brand, pitch blue brand for Kodachi, then play Command and Conquer, and arsenal the E-Strike. If the CNC hits, we get FaB's arsenal and get to choose what we are putting into our arsenal. And if the CNC gets blocked, then we took some cards away from FaB. We just arsenal our E-Strike and wait to see what our next hand looks like. CNC does get 3 blocks from FaB, so looking like they had a bit of a clunker as well, but they do get to utilize that clunker to block. Red brand with 2 cards in hand. We are not going to block this brand. We are going to see what the rest of FaB's turn looks like. They pitch a blue to attack with the Kodachi. So from our own experience, we know that there is at least another Kodachi and a Phoenix Flame coming this turn. If this becomes a Phoenix Flame on the 3rd link, our That All You Got gets great value. But if this card in hand is a 4-powered breakpoint, That All You Got loses value. So we really should be blocking with That All You Got here. We interrupt the mask chain and we put the opposing FaB on needing to have a 1-cost Draconic in hand to be able to attack with the Kodachi and a Phoenix Flame from discard. And if this is a 1-cost or 0-cost Draconic from hand, Mounting Anger, Blaze Headlong, that needs to come before the Phoenix Flame, so it can't be the mask trigger. We block this Kodachi. The follow-up is Mounting Anger, Kodachi, Phoenix Flame, and we can block that Phoenix Flame. But if we instead take this Kodachi damage and our opposing FaB plays a Mounting Anger, now we are in a situation where we need to give a real card from hand, and we lose the value of That All You Got. So not using Tag on the Kodachi was a mistake, and we should have known it was a mistake based on the opposing FaB having 3 cards, their play pattern of brand, pitch for Kodachi. The last card in hand was either going to be something totally inconsequential or a 4. So we need to play for the worst case scenario, which is that this is a 4. So we didn't, and now we're in a situation where we can either block this or let the damage go through. Looking at our hand, if we block with Bittering Thorns and Furnace, our turn looks like Rising Resentment for 3, Rising Resentment for 3, E-Strike for 7. That's pretty good. 13 points of damage. We threaten a mask trigger. If we take the damage, FaB draws a card, gets to throw at least 2 more chain links, and we are probably pitching Tag for a Phoenix Flame. So we throw Resentment for 3, Resentment for 3, Bittering Thorns for 4, pick up and play Phoenix Flame. That's maybe 12 points of damage if the Thorn hits, 13 points of damage if we get to discount the Thorns with our Rising Resentment trigger. So we are probably getting less value than if we just Resentment, E-Strike. So let's block with Bittering Thorns and our Furnace. Our opposing FaB picks up Phoenix Flame and attacks with Kodachi. Again, we should block this with That All You Got. We aren't interrupting a mask trigger, but we are at least getting value. We are preventing 1 point of damage, and that all you got will replace itself. And regardless of what it replaces itself with, we can still present our 13 damage mask trigger turn. And maybe it replaces itself with something much better. Maybe it replaces itself with a Blaze Headlong, and we get to throw 3, 3, 4, 1 pass with an E-Strike still in arsenal. So we should be blocking this with Tag. We choose not to, and our opposing FaB throws the Phoenix Flame. This, thankfully, I do decide to block with Tag. I decide to get some value. And we draw into a Lava Burst. If we had blocked intelligently, let's say we block that second Kodachi with the That All You Got, our opposing FaB throws Mounting Anger, Kodachi, Phoenix Flame. We block that Phoenix Flame with our Flamescale Furnace to prevent the mask trigger. The turn comes back to us, but we have a Bittering Thorns in hand. So now our turn looks something like Rising Resentment, E-Strike for 5, go again, Lava Burst. We either get a mask trigger or we can pick up an arsenal of Phoenix Flame. Or if our Rising Resentment hits and discounts the cost of Bittering Thorns, now our turn is Rising Resentment, Bittering Thorns, Lava Burst, keep an E-Strike in arsenal. So we really lose some value by not blocking with That All You Got on the Kodachi, which we should have anticipated would do the most damage to our opposing FaB. We can talk a bit about the opposing FaB's turn and what they might have done better as far as sequencing. Based on a Brand, a Mounting Anger, and a blue in hand, they get to attack 5 times in the turn. Brand, 2 Kodachis, Mounting Anger, and a Phoenix Flame. Their line was reasonable. Brand, Kodachi, Mounting Anger. The Mounting Anger is the 4-point hit trigger for Mask of Momentum. We are hard pressed to block it easily. But what happens if instead they go Kodachi, Mounting Anger, Brand, Kodachi, Phoenix Flame? The Mounting Anger on link 2 prompts us to block, because if we take the Mounting Anger damage, not only are we taking 4, but we are also setting ourselves up to need to block 4 on link 3. If we do block the Mounting Anger on link 2, we had to give either 2 pieces of armor or a card from hand, and now FaB gets to say Brand, Kodachi, Phoenix Flame, threatening Mask of Momentum again, and we need to block that time too. So if we had blocked the Kodachi with our That All You Got, we keep 4 cards in hand, 1 card in arsenal, and we give up the front half of our Flamescale Furnace. But if the opposing FaB sequences just a bit differently, so that it's Kodachi, Mounting Anger, we block the Mounting Anger with a card from hand, our Bittering Thorns, and our armor. Then FaB plays Brand, Kodachi, Phoenix Flame. We block the Phoenix Flame with our That All You Got, so we wind up in the situation we are in now. But we needed to do that. We needed to give a card from hand. So that's all to say that if we are getting into a world where more decks are playing That All You Got as a way to interrupt our Mask of Momentum triggers and our Mask of Momentum chains building up to the hit trigger, we need to sequence our attacks just a bit differently. Throw the Mounting Anger on link 2 so that your opponent is inclined to block that. Then you play out the rest of your turn. Let's move forward. We are still just going to play the line I described ages ago. Rising Resentment, E-Strike for 7. We really can't do anything differently here and have nearly as effective a turn. E-Strike, goes unblocked, so we are going to push quite a bit of damage and trigger our Mask of Momentum, picking up a yellow brand for the arsenal. Certainly could have been a better card, certainly could have been worse. But FaB with 4 cards in hand leaves a lot of options available to them. Kodachi here coming in for 1. We know that FaB can pick up Phoenix Flame, and that Phoenix Flame will come for 2 because of the opposing Shuko. I don't really want to block 2 because I would prefer to keep my Shuko, and looking at what I have in hand with our yellow brand in Arsenal, we can throw 4 chain links between yellow brand and blue brand, pitching for Kodachis and Phoenix Flame. Our Kodachis will hit, discounting our bleed out, and we can end our turn with Salt the Wound. So something like 2-1-2-1-4-6 looks very appealing. So I do have the option to block an attack with E-Strike. If what FaB follows this Kodachi with is another 4-power breakpoint, blocking with Furnace and E-Strike is a great way to cover that. If they follow with Phoenix Flame for 2, it's a tougher decision on how we are blocking that. I don't love giving E-Strike to block a 2-power attack, and I don't love giving Shuko. So all of this is to say, if I am choosing how to block this now, I believe I am blocking the Kodachi with Furnace, intending to save E-Strike to block later in the turn. As it is, I choose not to do that, and am rewarded because I get to block this Snatch. Block the Snatch with E-Strike and Furnace. We keep our Shuko, we keep a great turn. If we had blocked the Kodachi, this Snatch would only represent 4 power and 1 card draw using the Snapdragon Scalers. I wouldn't love taking that damage, but I would, knowing that I am intending to use my E-Strike to block a 3-power attack later in the turn. Snatch does get the snap usage, and FaB follows up with a Command and Conquer. I'm not going to protect this brand. I can still throw a pretty good turn. Kodachi, bleed out. Based on how our opposing FaB responds, I can either end with Salt or Arsenal it. Our opposing FaB still has Furnace and Shuko. I assume they're going to use that to block the bleed out and keep a 4-card hand, which makes me inclined to Arsenal the Salt and wait for a 5-card turn in the future. We're still at 24. I'm very confident that FaB can't kill me from 24, even with a 4-card hand. If one of them is an Art of War, that would be pretty good, but I think we are still fine. Double Strike here, coming for 1. I am still not inclined to block that. And we'll see what FaB is going to use to threaten the Mask of Momentum trigger. It is a Bittering Thorns. I'm fine to give the Shuko here. With our blue, to pay for 2 Kodachis, we have Kodachi bleed out. Then we have Double Strike Salt as our 6-link turn. So as long as we don't let our opposing FaB trigger Mask of Momentum, we are in a pretty good spot. Let's use our Ronin Renegade and our Shuko to block the Bittering Thorns, as Ronin Renegade is the least impactful card in our hand as far as triggering Mask of Momentum. With just 1 resource and 1 card in hand, I am pretty confident that the opposing FaB cannot trigger Mask of Momentum again this turn. Lava Burst for 5 is a good finisher, but we are happy to just take that vanilla damage. We have a few options for sequencing on this turn. Because our opposing FaB has already blocked with the Flamescale Furnace, I don't think they would hesitate to use it to block Double Strike here. If the Flamescale Furnace did not have a Battle Worn counter on it, then I probably would throw Double Strike as the third chain link to make blocking as inconvenient for FaB as possible. As it is, the bleed out gets blocked as we expected, and we get to throw a 6-power Salt the Wound as our Mask of Momentum trigger. It goes unblocked. We draw into an E-Strike, which with our Snapdragon still available is a very good card to use in our arsenal. We're going to let this Kodachi go through, and we are going to use That All You Got on this Kodachi. You can see me just reading the card to make sure it works on attacks, not just on attack actions. So Tag here is going to replace itself at the end of the turn, and we do a great job of breaking FaB's Mask of Momentum chain. FaB ending the turn with Snatch. We're going to let this hit. The opposing FaB does not have Snapdragons available, so this is just a card in Arsenal, and based on what we have in hand, and knowing that we are going to draw a card at the end of this turn, I'm not confident that anything we have is not going to benefit us on our turn. Even without the information that we will draw a card, we can still look at this hand and see that it's pretty good. Kodachi, E-Strike for 5, draw a card, bottoming the Ancestral Empowerment, gets at least one card from our opposing FaB on defense. We then use our Snapdragon Scalers to give Go Again, our Blaze Headlong has Go Again, and whatever we drew is potentially dealing more damage at the end of that chain. So this hand is pretty good. The Ancestral only gets better if we draw a Ninja attack off the top of our deck, but at the very least, it gets bottomed to E-Strike. So with FaB not having the Snapdragons for this Snatch, I'm just going to let it hit. And we can see that if we hadn't used That All You Got on the Kodachi, we would have had to use it on the Ronin Renegade. We would not be replacing it at the end of our turn, and the Snatch would be as threatening as it is now. So we really were benefited by using it on the Kodachi, which is a lesson we learned from earlier in this game when we screwed it up. We draw into a red Brand with Cinderclaw, which is just insane. We get to throw Kodachi, Brand. Neither of these Kodachis is going to get blocked because that would be inefficient for FaB. It is possible that FaB blocks this Brand for 4, anticipating an Art of War or the Ancestral. If that happens, then we just throw Blaze Headlong for 4, E-Strike for 7, and we bottom our Ancestral Empowerment. If this Brand gets blocked for 3, then we throw the Ancestral. We get a point of damage over the top of blocks, and we get our Momentum trigger. Drawing into the Art of War here is very strong, but I'm not inclined to play it just yet. At the very least, we have Blaze for 4, E-Strike for 7, threatening 11 points of damage. But we still have our Mask trigger, and seeing what we draw with Mask, it being a blue that we really don't need here, I'm going to play the Art of War, banishing the Soulbead Strike, because I know that I have Blaze Headlong, and regardless of what comes off the top of my deck, I can bottom something to E-Strike, and either play the remaining card or arsenal it. Our Brand is currently giving our next attack the Draconic type line. So we could even throw E-Strike here, bottoming our Mounting Anger. That gives the E-Strike Draconic. We play our Blaze Headlong as our third Draconic link. Now we can pick up and play our Phoenix Flame. and that is exactly what I would like to do. E-Strike for 6, draw a card. Throwing the Blaze Headlong instead is just a mistake. I'm perhaps caught up in the excitement of an Art of War, having just triggered Mask of Momentum, but we definitely should have thrown E-Strike there to give it Draconic. We end up not needing it. We draw into a 0-cost Draconic attack, which will give us our 3rd Draconic Chain Link, but had we thrown the E-Strike before the Blaze Headlong, we wouldn't have needed to draw a 0-cost Draconic attack. Loyalty gets a card on defense. Our Phoenix Flame will get the last card in hand, and Snatch for 5 will clean this game up. Wanted to show this game because it really demonstrates the power of That All You Got. This was a good opportunity to kind of play both sides of the board, give some advice from my perspective as far as my own play and my opponent's play. So you all get kind of a twofer here. You're welcome. And I think this was a pretty well balanced game. We did win the die roll, which is always ideal in the aggro mirror. But neither of us had a big blowout Art of War turn, at least not until the end of the game, and I do think that I did not need that Art of War to close this out. Even without the Art of War, I had a very strong rest of the turn lined up that, if it did not strip FaB's hand entirely, would have put them in a position where they could not threaten lethal on me, and I would have gotten to throw another 4 or 5 card hand back at them. Overall, I thought it was a well-played game that showed off the power of some new tech in the deck that I wanted to show to all of you. I do hope you enjoyed this game. I do hope you learned something from it. If you did, be sure to head jab that like button. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback. And otherwise, I will see you back here tomorrow for more daily FaB gameplay. Until then, take care.